For centuries, the Western world has been taught to fear the end. The apocalypse, in the Christian imagination, has always come cloaked in fire, destruction, and divine punishment. Sermons about the end times became tools of psychological control, weaponizing fear of hell and eternal damnation. Matthew 24 is quoted endlessly. Wars, plagues, earthquakes, signs of an imminent end. But what if we've misunderstood these messages? What if the real apocalypse isn't a cosmic event, but an intimate process? What if judgment doesn't fall from the sky but rises from the heart? The Ethiopian Bible preserves a radically different view, one that doesn't shout, it whispers, and it might just change everything we believe about the end. While many await trumpets and horsemen, the Ethiopian texts speak of something silent, invisible, yet deeply real. The apocalypse, according to these writings, is not a catastrophe, it's a soul-level revelation. The word apocalypse in Greek literally means revelation, and this revelation doesn't explode in the heavens. It unfolds in spiritual mirrors. It happens when a person is confronted with what they've become, with what they've denied, repressed, or corrupted. According to this tradition, the end won't come as an external spectacle, but as an inner unraveling. A collapse of illusion, a collision with the truth we've avoided all our lives, and maybe it's already begun. The Ethiopian tradition preserves texts that were removed from the Western biblical canon, but survived among monks and visionaries for millennia. One of them is the Apocalypse of Peter, a 2nd century book considered sacred in Ethiopia, but banned in the West after the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. In it, hell is not a physical place. It's a condition of the soul. The condemned are those who chose to live far from the light, not by divine punishment, but by natural consequence. This vision changes everything. The final judgment stops being a courtroom and becomes a mirror, a reflection of what a person has built within themselves. There is no angry God casting lightning, only a soul finally recognizing what it has become. This shift in perspective is profound and unsettling, because if judgment is spiritual, then it may already be happening. And that would explain a lot. Why do so many people today live in torment despite having comfort? Why are anxiety, fear, and emptiness spreading even in times of abundance? Maybe it's because the hell Peter described, the hell of disconnection, is already manifesting here and now. The Ethiopian apocalypse doesn't describe future events. It speaks of inner realities revealing themselves over time. With every choice, every departure from truth, judgment draws near, not as punishment, but as consequence, and that forces us to face the truth. We might be our own apocalypse. The 13th century Ethiopian theologian Abba Salama wrote, "The end of times will not fall from the heavens, but will be felt in the heart of man." He referred to the idea that spiritual collapse always precedes physical collapse. The outer world merely reflects the inner one, and this connects directly to what Jesus said in Luke 17:21. "The kingdom of God is within you. If the kingdom is within, then so is the judgment." This often ignored phrase holds the key to understanding the apocalypse as a spiritual process. It's not about waiting for the end, it's about waking up, realizing that the end of the world may simply be the end of illusion, and it's that illusion that keeps us from living fully. The revelations of the Ethiopian Bible were kept secret for centuries, protected in the mountain monasteries of Lalibela and Axum, far from the political councils that shaped Western Christianity. A living spirituality was preserved, one that doesn't fear the end, because it sees the end as the beginning of truth. The Ethiopian Bible contains over 80 books, including texts like the Book of Enoch, the Apocalypse of Peter, and the Book of Jubilees, all of which speak of invisible realms and eternal judgment. They don't describe monsters or cosmic wars. They speak of light, awareness, and soul states, and that is even more powerful, because it's real, present, and deeply transformational. We've grown so used to imagining the apocalypse as a cinematic event that we ignore the subtle signs of judgment already unfolding around and within us. The coldness in relationships, the collapse of moral values, the loss of purpose, the rise in depression and spiritual disconnection. These might be the real horsemen of the end, but no one wants to face it. It's easier to fear the future than to confront the present. And that's exactly what these ancient texts invite us to do. Stop looking at the sky and start looking within. Because maybe judgment isn't a punishment, but an invitation to truth. And truth begins to reveal itself when we silence the noise of the world. What you're feeling right now, that unease, that flicker of doubt, could be a sign that something greater is awakening in you. Because deep down, we've always known that the true judgment wouldn't come with thunder, but with awareness. And if you've made it this far, maybe you've felt that calling. It's not about believing, it's about remembering. Remembering the light that's always been in you, what was forgotten but not lost. And if this journey is only beginning, maybe now is the moment to walk it together. Share what this awakened in you in the comments. And if you want to keep exploring this truth, subscribe, because the next step may change everything. From a young age, we were taught to picture hell as a place of eternal fire, where souls scream for mercy in a bottomless pit. That image was reinforced by paintings, movies, sermons, and even religious textbooks. But what if that portrayal was just a misinterpreted metaphor? The texts preserved in the Ethiopian Bible and other ancient apocryphal writings reveal a reality far more subtle and terrifyingly close. According to the Apocalypse of Peter, hell isn't beneath the earth. It's within the soul. It's not physical punishment. It's a mental and spiritual state. It isn't imposed by God. It's chosen. Chosen every time we drift away from truth, from love, and from light. The Apocalypse of Peter, written in the 2nd century AD and considered sacred by early Christian communities, describes a kind of spiritual suffering born from the soul's own awareness. In these accounts, sinners are not consumed by outer flames, but by inner remorse, emptiness, and shame before the light they once ignored. One striking line from the text reads, "They will see the place they could have reached and weep for themselves." This isn't punishment. It's clarity, a painful clarity, like waking from a dream and realizing you wasted your life. This hell is silent, but screams inside. It's the cry of a soul that realizes, too late, what it became. This concept isn't just symbolic. It echoes across spiritual traditions, including teachings attributed to Jesus himself. In Luke 16:19-31, he tells the parable of the rich man and Lazarus, where the rich man, after death, realizes his distance from the light, not through punishment, but as a natural result of his empty life. The chasm that separates him from salvation was built by his own choices. That chasm is the very hell Peter describes, not a geographical place, but an internal distance. Hell, then, is not where you go. It's what you carry, here, now, and that changes everything. Because if hell is within, it could already be happening. Imagine being surrounded by people but feeling deeply alone. Having everything you want but still feeling empty. Having a voice but no words to speak. Having freedom but no direction. These are the symptoms of the hell described in the apocryphal texts. A soul disconnected from its essence. According to the Book of the Secrets of Enoch, Ethiopian version, those who have forgotten themselves shall be given over to the weight of existence. That weight is modern hell. Depression, anxiety, guilt, confusion. It's not the end of time. It's the end of the living soul. And more people are experiencing it without realizing. The real question is, how do we escape it? The answer may not lie in external doctrine, but in the courage to look inward. The Book of Enoch, preserved in the Ethiopian Bible, describes a judgment carried out by angels of light, who show the soul all it could have been. This isn't about condemnation, it's about revelation. It's the moment the soul sees itself without masks, and that's where true repentance is born, not from fear of punishment, but from the pain of having betrayed one's own essence. This perspective is nearly absent in Western theology, which prefers rigid doctrines and external judgment. But what if real hell is simply forgetting who we are? What if judgment is forced remembrance? If this view is true, and so many ancient texts point to it, then we've misunderstood the apocalypse for centuries. Instead of fearing monsters and flames, we should fear the numbness of the soul, the state of living without purpose, awareness, or connection. In the Gospel of Thomas, verse 70, Jesus says, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you." That inner poverty is hell in disguise, and many live in it while smiling on the outside. It's an inner abyss, a place where the soul's light has gone out. But the good news, that abyss can be reversed if we remember. The key lies in daily choices, in quiet thoughts, in unseen actions. The Ethiopian apocalypse shows us that judgment is ongoing, and we are always standing at the edge of heaven or hell. Not after death, but now. The soul is constantly being shaped, tested, and weighed, and that process is invisible to the world, but deeply felt by those who still hear the inner voice. Ethiopian tradition reminds us that hell is not a place, it's a distance, and every step toward truth closes that distance. Every act of light pulls us from the edge. Hell begins to dissolve when the soul awakens, and that awakening has already begun. Maybe the most terrifying version of hell isn't the one religion describes, but the one the soul feels when it can no longer remember who it is. That is true torment, the loss of essence. And if this chapter touched something in you, if a forgotten part of you was stirred, that may be a sign that your soul is still alive. There's no need to fear judgment, only to listen to the call. Share what resonated with you in the comments, and if something inside you began to awaken, subscribe to continue this journey. Because in the next chapter we'll reveal an even deeper truth. Salvation is not what you've been told. For centuries, salvation has been portrayed as a reward for the obedient, a prize for those who follow religious rituals to the letter. It became a currency of fear, a system of control. But the apocryphal texts preserved in the Ethiopian Bible and the earliest Christian communities suggest something radically different. They speak of a salvation that doesn't require intermediaries or institutions, but an inner awakening. In the Gospel of Thomas, verse 3, Jesus says, "If what is within you is not within you, what is outside will destroy you." That phrase already points to a personal, intimate salvation, one born from consciousness, not blind obedience. Contrary to what many were taught, Jesus never promised salvation like handing out a ticket to paradise. He offered something deeper, self-knowledge. In John 8:32, he says, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." That truth is not a fixed doctrine. It's the recognition of the inner light. Ethiopian tradition reinforces this idea, teaching that salvation is not a post-death reward, but a spiritual state that can be achieved in life. The Book of Enoch, Ethiopian version, chapter 39, speaks of men of light who walk among the living, showing that salvation is a state of awareness, a state of remembrance and reconnection. So why was this truth hidden? Why do so many churches teach that we must follow rules to deserve heaven? The answer may lie in power, because a soul that awakens no longer submits to rigid systems. It thinks for itself, it questions, it feels, and that threatens any system built on control. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene, verse 9, shows the disciples arguing because Mary had understood something they couldn't, that salvation was an inner journey, and that shocked those who wanted to organize faith around external laws. Mary, according to the text, grasped what many still can't. The path isn't outside, it's within. Salvation, then, isn't dependent on baptism, church attendance, tithes, or outward rituals. It happens when the soul awakens to the truth of its origin. Jesus himself says in Thomas 70, "When you become one, you will become the sons of man. And if you say, 'We dwell in the light,' and if you are truly in the light, you will know everything." This idea challenges everything we've been taught, because they told us we had to earn it. But the truth is, the light was always within us, just forgotten. The Ethiopian tradition brings this back with clarity. There, monks say, forgetfulness is the only fall. Remembrance is the only redemption. Simple and powerful. Maybe that's why so many people feel unsatisfied with traditional religious messages. Because something inside us knows that salvation can't be transactional. It must be real. And truth doesn't demand fear. It demands courage. Courage to look within and recognize the divine spark asleep inside. The Book of Jubilees, Ethiopian, chapter 23, speaks of a time when men will rediscover their spirit and walk in righteousness without external laws. This is not spiritual anarchy, it's reconnection with essence. It's living with purpose, clarity, and truth. And when that happens, the hell we spoke of earlier begins to dissolve. Because where there is light, darkness cannot remain. It's shocking, but liberating, to realize that no one needs to be saved, because we already are, as soon as we remember. The idea of being lost is simply the state of one who forgot who they are. The real sin isn't moral, it's existential. It's living without essence, without presence, without consciousness, and that can't be healed by guilt, only by truth. Salvation is the opposite of alienation, and that's why it's so uncomfortable, because it demands responsibility. It's not a gift handed down from above. It's a flame that ignites the moment you choose to seek. When you stop repeating and start listening to yourself, and remembering what your soul already knew, but was taught to forget. And if this idea stirred something in you, it's because your soul is alive and searching. Because salvation, unlike what they say, doesn't come from the outside. It comes from reconnecting with the light that has lived in you from the beginning. And if that reconnection started here, share what you felt. Write it down, reflect, leave your mark, not for me, but for yourself. And if you want to keep walking this path of rediscovery, subscribe. Because in the next chapter, we'll explore something even more revolutionary. The Christ who doesn't return from the sky, but awakens from within. Since the earliest centuries, Christian hope has revolved around the second coming of Christ. Many imagine a Messiah bursting through the skies in glory, surrounded by angels and trumpets. This literal vision is ingrained in sermons, movies, and doctrine. But did Jesus actually promise a physical, visible, and spectacular return? Or have we misunderstood a profoundly spiritual promise? The tradition preserved in the Ethiopian Bible suggests a different reading, one that challenges the outward gaze and invites inward listening. The returning Christ, according to these writings, does not descend from the sky. He awakens from the soul. He doesn't come to judge, but to remind. Jesus himself said in John 14:20, "On that day you will know that I am in my Father, and you are in me, and I am in you." This statement is often overlooked, but it holds a crucial clue. The presence of Christ is not outside, it's within. In the Gospel of Thomas, verse 77, he says, "I am the light that is over all things. I am the all. The all came forth from me, and the all returned to me. Split a piece of wood, and I am there. Lift the stone, and you will find me there." There's no mention of clouds or thunder. This is about presence, about awareness, about something that is already here, but still asleep. The second coming, in this sense, is not an event, it's a remembrance. In Ethiopian tradition, especially among the desert monks of Gishan and Debre Damo, a powerful oral teaching circulates. The Son of Man will return to the heart of man. This phrase is repeated like a mantra. According to their records, the return of Christ is not something to wait for, but something to activate. When the soul aligns with the inner light, Christ awakens within it. This teaching connects to the idea that the kingdom of God is within you, Luke 17:21. The return, then, is neither geographical nor chronological. It is spiritual. And perhaps that's why so many have missed it, because they keep looking at the sky and forget to look within. The Book of the Secrets of Enoch, part of the Ethiopian Bible, contains an enigmatic passage. The Son will come as a whisper among thoughts and sit upon the throne of the Spirit. This paints a Christ who does not act as an external king, but as awakened consciousness. He does not conquer with a sword, but with remembrance. This Christ does not shine in the heavens. He illuminates the soul, and that's why his arrival will not be broadcast or televised. It will be felt in silence, in the subtle transformation of those who begin to see with the eyes of the Spirit. And that's the most dangerous return, because it cannot be controlled by religion or institutionalized. The idea of an inner Christ was fought for centuries by religious authorities, because it removes power from temples and returns it to the soul. If Christ dwells within you, who needs intermediaries? Who needs to pay for blessings or follow blind rules? The inner return brings liberation, and that's why it terrifies. In the 4th century, Ethiopian monks hid copies of the Gospel of Thomas and the Book of Enoch in caves, so these truths wouldn't be destroyed. They knew the second coming had already begun, but invisibly, and they sought to protect that truth until souls were ready to hear it. The real question is, Are we ready now? This vision changes everything, because if Christ is within us, then salvation is within us. Hope is within us. Healing, peace, and light. They all begin with awakening. And we awaken the moment we stop waiting for an outer miracle and start nurturing the sacred within. When we recognize the voice of Christ in small decisions, in the silence of conscience, in the impulse to forgive or act with compassion, this is the Messiah who returns every day. But only those who have begun to remember will see him. Apocalypse, then, is not destruction. It is revelation. And the most powerful revelation is this: he never left. We just forgot where to look. How many times have you felt something unexplainable? A calling, a presence, an inner spark? How many times did you silence that voice because someone told you it was just your imagination? Maybe that was the beginning of the return of the one who dwells in the sanctuary of your spirit. And if this chapter awakened something in you, a memory, a flame, a forgotten certainty, write it down. Share what you felt, because this is the real sign that he is coming back. Not in the clouds, but in you. And if you want to continue this journey of remembrance, subscribe. Because in the next chapter, we'll reveal something even bolder. The final judgment is already happening, right now. Most people believe the final judgment will be a dramatic event. Millions of souls summoned, angels with giant books weighing deeds, and an angry God deciding eternal destinies. But that image is a later construction, shaped by centuries of fear, religious politics, and literal interpretations. In the texts preserved in the Ethiopian Bible, judgment is not a future event. It is a present reality. It doesn't happen in a celestial courtroom, but within the soul's consciousness, and that changes everything. The Apocalypse of Peter, for example, describes a judgment that unfolds as the soul begins to recognize itself. The light does not accuse, it simply reveals what was hidden, and that light is already on. According to the Book of Jubilees, Ethiopian, chapter 23, the time of judgment will come like a silent wind, and those who feel it will see their own reflection. This means judgment needs no fixed dates. It manifests in the moments when we're confronted with the truth about ourselves, our choices, our deviations. When awakened, the conscience becomes both a mirror and a scale. It reveals, it weighs, and this is what defines spiritual judgment: the soul's ability to see itself without masks. There's no throne, no sentence, just revelation, and when it comes, it can be more powerful than thunder in the sky. Among the oral teachings of the Ethiopian monks of Debre Libanos, there's a phrase passed down for centuries: every act carries its mirror. This means every thought, every action, every omission leaves a reflection in the soul, and over time, that mirror becomes unavoidable. It shows us, unfiltered, what we've built with our existence. Judgment, then, is not something that comes. It's something that arises, like light in the basement of the soul. And when that light turns on, everything we've hidden becomes visible. That can be heaven or hell, not because someone judged us, but because truth can no longer be denied. It simply is. This process is already happening to thousands of people. Existential crises, deep depression, unexplained emptiness, all these may be signs of a soul being confronted with its truth. In the apocryphal Gospel of Bartholomew, partially preserved in Ethiopia, there's a story of a soul that, upon death, finds no demons or fire, only the echo of everything it had silenced. I was pursued by myself, the text says. That image is devastating, because it shows that true torment doesn't come from outside, but from what we refuse to face. And that torment begins long before death. It begins when we stop listening to the soul. Ethiopian tradition teaches that judgment intensifies the farther we drift from truth. Every lie we tell, every value we betray, every intuition we ignore, all of it accumulates, and the soul feels it. It may not know how to name it, but it feels it. That's why so many live in restlessness, even when everything seems fine, because the soul knows, and it responds, not with wrath, but with the absence of peace. In the Book of Enoch, chapter 91, this is described as the inner night that invades those who stray from the light. This night has no stars, no silence, only noise and confusion, and it grows until the soul chooses to remember who it is. That's the turning point. Spiritual judgment is not punishment. It is restoration. It doesn't come to destroy, but to reveal. And that revelation is the beginning of healing. Because when the soul sees its own face and acknowledges its errors, something profound can change. True repentance doesn't come from fear. It comes from recognition. It's the moment we realize how deeply we've wounded ourselves by living in untruth. And in that moment, judgment ceases to be a sentence and becomes a rebirth. That's the beauty of the forgotten texts. They speak of a God who doesn't punish, but mirrors, and of a Christ who doesn't condemn, but invites. Invites us to awaken. And awakening is the true judgment. If all of this is true, then you are already being judged, not by a superior being watching from the heavens, but by your own soul trying to wake you up. Every sleepless night, every strange shiver, every inner scream, it's judgment knocking at the door. Not to condemn you, but to remind you. And if this message stirred something in you, something you can't quite explain, maybe that's the sign. Leave a comment and share what it awakened in you. Let your consciousness speak. And if you want to keep uncovering this revelation that has already begun, subscribe. Because in the next chapter, you'll discover something even more disturbing. The end of time has already begun. The world anxiously awaits the so-called end of times, as if it were a date marked on the cosmic calendar. Hollywood portrays it with tsunamis, meteors, and nuclear wars. Churches preach it through fear, linking natural disasters to divine punishment. But what if this end isn't external at all? What if the true apocalypse is already happening within? The Ethiopian Bible and apocryphal texts reveal that the end of times is not the end of the planet, but the end of humanity as we know it, the end of a sleeping consciousness. And this transition, silent, invisible, and deep, has already begun. Few have noticed, because it doesn't tear down walls, it dissolves certainty. The Book of Jubilees, chapter 23 says, "In the last days, the hearts of men will grow hard, and wisdom will be despised." That description fits our time perfectly. Never have people spoken so much and listened so little. Spirituality has become a product. Truth has become opinion. Goodness has become performance. The signs of the end are not in the skies. They're in our souls. The loss of empathy, the collapse of human connection, the loneliness amid hyperconnection. All of this points to an end that has already begun. Not the end of the physical world, but the inner one, the world of essence, the world that sustains the spirit and is now in ruins. The apocryphal Gospel of Bartholomew, one of the darkest texts preserved in Ethiopian tradition, describes souls that wander in torment for having disconnected from truth before the end. They weren't destroyed by fire, but by indifference. One chilling line reads, "There were no trumpets, no light, only silence. And in that silence, I knew the end had already passed." That silence is what many people live today. A silence muffled by empty routines, endless distractions, and a system that teaches us to forget who we are. There are no meteors, there is forgetfulness. And when the soul forgets its origin, it collapses. A collapse that is invisible, but devastating. Ethiopian tradition calls this process the hidden end. Monks teach that the apocalypse begins when the eyes stop seeing what matters and the ears shut themselves to inner truth. The Book of Enoch, chapter 104, describes it precisely. In the end, many will have eyes but not see, ears but not hear, and they will walk like the living dead. That may be the most accurate image of our generation. People who walk, produce, consume, but no longer feel. Who know the price of everything, but the value of nothing. That is the real end, the end of sensitivity, the end of the living soul. And when that happens, no physical end is needed, because the spirit is already gone. That's why the real question is no longer, when will the end come, but how much of the end is already inside us. Every time we accept injustice as normal, trade truth for convenience, or reject intuition out of fear, time runs out. The end of times, according to apocryphal texts, is a moment when light withdraws from within humanity. And that doesn't happen all at once. It's gradual. A thread of light dims every time we choose to survive instead of live. Every time we surrender to comfort instead of consciousness. That is the real apocalypse. Disconnection. And it's not coming. It's spreading. quietly, like a mist over the soul, but all is not lost. The same Book of Jubilees states, "The righteous will recognize the time and rise, even if the world calls them mad." This means that even in the midst of collapse, there are those who awaken, who feel something is wrong, even if they can't explain it, who cry without reason, question without answers, search without knowing what for. These are the ones who have already begun to feel the end, not to fear it, but to overcome it, because the end can also be a beginning, a chance to reconnect. And maybe the true Messiah won't come from the sky, but in the act of remembering who we are. This awakening won't be collective nor spectacular. It will be personal, and it will happen in silence, in dark rooms, in lonely walks, in questions that refuse to go away. The Gospel of Thomas says, "The one who seeks will find, and when they find, they will be disturbed." Because awakening is not comfort, it is confrontation. It is seeing that the world ended inside us long before it ended outside. But it's also realizing that something else still remains, something that never died, something that still burns. If this chapter disturbed you, if something in you recognized itself here, then the end that began could also be the start of something greater. And that depends on you. So the question now is not whether the apocalypse has arrived. It's, what will you do with this revelation? Because what really matters is not when the world will end, but when you will start remembering who you are. If something inside you moved, if a light flickered even in the midst of the fog, write it. Let your soul speak in the comments. And if this journey is resonating with you, subscribe. Because in the next chapter, we'll reveal the most powerful truth of all. In the end, the judge is you. In every religion, the image of final judgment has one thing in common. Someone superior judges someone inferior. God on the throne, angels with giant books, humans awaiting their sentence. But what if all of this is just a projection of humanity's fear of looking inward? In the forgotten, hidden texts preserved in the Ethiopian Bible, a different image emerges. Judgment is not an external spectacle. It is intimate. And more than that, it is inevitable. Because whether you believe or not, in the end, truth finds you. And when it does, you will be the judge. Because deep down, only you will know who you truly were and who you failed to be. The Book of the Secrets of Enoch, Ethiopic, chapter 65, says, "Man shall be summoned before himself, and what was hidden shall be revealed in his own light." There's no mention of a courtroom. There's mention of a mirror. That mirror is the soul's reflection, and before it, there's no lying. No mask survives. No excuse holds up. It is the moment when you see yourself fully, with all the lies you told, the silences you chose, and the gifts you buried. That is the real judgment. And it doesn't depend on religion, dogma, or morality. It depends on consciousness. And consciousness is the only judge no one can deceive. The Apocalypse of Peter describes this moment with powerful symbolism. Each soul shall see the throne of its own existence and be measured by the light it became or extinguished. That means there is no imposed condemnation, only consequence. What the soul built it will reap, and what it avoided will be exposed. The soul won't be judged for failing, but for forgetting. Forgetting is the true abyss. Forgetting your origin, forgetting the light, forgetting your mission. Hell, then, is not a punishment. It's the experience of living without yourself. And heaven is remembrance. The recognition of what was always there. In the apocryphal writings, especially the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, chapter 8, salvation is described as the moment when the soul remembers the fullness and ceases to be divided. This is deeply symbolic, because the inner division between who we are and who we pretend to be is what causes suffering. And judgment is nothing more than the dissolving of that division, a brutal encounter with truth, a moment of reconciliation or collapse. And no one can face this moment for you. No pastor, no guru, no church. In the end, all fades, and only you remain. You face to face with your own eternity. It's frightening to think about, but it's also liberating, because it means you don't have to wait for heaven. You can build it. You don't need to fear hell. You can avoid it. Everything depends on how you live, feel, choose, love. Judgment is now. Every impure thought, every selfish choice, every act of love or light It's all being recorded, but not by an angel with a golden pen, by you, by your soul, and your soul remembers, because nothing is lost in the spiritual world. Everything is imprinted in the invisible field of consciousness, and in the end, that record will be revealed, not as an accusation, but as a revelation. The truth will show you yourself. This vision may be uncomfortable, because it gives you the power, and with it, the responsibility. There's no one left to blame, not the church, not religion, not doctrine, only you. And that's terrifying, because truth terrifies, but it also heals, because real spiritual power lies in realizing that you carry the light, and that true salvation is remembering that. The forgotten texts have said this for millennia, and now, in the silence of souls beginning to awaken, this truth is surfacing again. The great revelation isn't that the end is near, it's that you have always been the beginning of the return. And now that everything has been revealed, maybe the final question is not about faith or theology, but this: are you ready to see yourself? Are you ready to face the mirror of your soul? No excuses, no masks, no fear, because it's already there, waiting. And sooner or later we all must look. If this journey touched you deeply, if it awakened something that was asleep, share it. Let your essence speak, not just in words, but in presence. And if you want to keep exploring the revelations that few dare to bring to light, subscribe, because there is far more light hidden in the shadows than you could ever imagine.